Great empires often start by accident. In 1996, Capcom didn't set out to build a billion-dollar empire. They were just trying to save money. When Shinji Mikami started working on Biohazard, or Resident Evil, he was fighting against hardware limitations. He couldn't make a fully 3D world, so he used pre-rendered backgrounds. He couldn't create fluid combat, so he invented tank controls. These weren't features, they were restrictions. But by restricting the player's view and movement, Mikami accidentally manufactured pure, unfiltered anxiety. When players stepped into that mansion, they weren't powerful heroes. They were victims. That feeling of helplessness didn't just sell games. It birthed the entire genre of survival horror. The evolution and the curse. For a decade, fear was the currency. But by 2004, the formula was rotting. The fixed camera angles felt archaic. The franchise was dying a slow death. Capcom took a massive gamble with Resident Evil 4. They ripped up the rulebook. They put the camera over Leon's shoulder and swapped slow zombies for angry villagers. It wasn't just a sequel, it was a revelation that changed the geometry of every third-person shooter that followed. But this success carried a curse. Capcom saw the massive sales of action games and thought, we need to be bigger. They started chasing the Call of Duty crowd. Resident Evil 5 and 6 became loud, explosive blockbusters. Financially, they were hits. But creatively, the soul of the franchise was dead. It had become a generic action movie, unrecognizable from the quiet horror of the mansion. The Renaissance. By 2016, the brand was at a crossroads. The movies were making millions, but the gamers, the core foundation, were leaving. Capcom had to make a choice: continue the profitable path of mindless action, or burn it all down and start over. They chose the fire. Resident Evil 7 was a hard reset. They stripped away the superheroes and the explosions. They went first person. They went back to a single, rotting house. They remembered the lesson from 1996. Fear makes money. This kicked off a golden age of remakes and sequels that didn't just capitalize on nostalgia, it weaponized it. They perfected the RE engine, creating visuals so photorealistic that the horror felt uncomfortable again. So, how did Resident Evil become a billion-dollar franchise? It wasn't just about zombies, it was about mutation. Just like the viruses in their games, the franchise refuses to stay in one form. It adapts. When the environment changes, Resident Evil changes. It went from static cameras, to action shooter, to VR horror, and back again. Most franchises die because they are too afraid to change. Resident Evil survived because it was terrified of staying the same. It proves that in the business of gaming, fear isn't just an emotion, it's the ultimate product.